Hello children, let us start a new chapter of biology, which is the nervous system. So nervous system is basically linked with your brain and your spinal cord. Firstly, the need of nervous system. Why do we need a nervous system in our body? Because firstly, it keeps us informed. We get all the information through this nervous system. It helps us to remember the things, to think about anything, and to give reasons like how this is happening, why this is happening. And it controls all our voluntary, which are under our will, and involuntary activities, which are not under our will. Voluntary, which we can do on our own, like we can move our muscles, like I'm using my hand to write. And involuntary, that is happening on its own, right? Your heart is beating, you're respirating, this is involuntary. So all this, in fact, everything what's going on in your body, it is controlled by your nervous system, right? So nervous system is fully based on your nerve cell, also known as neuron. Neuron is the structural, means it is forming the nervous system. It is the structural as well as the functional unit of nervous system. Structural unit means it is forming the nervous system. Like a wall is created by a brick. Brick is the structural unit. Similarly, neuron or nerve cell is the structural unit of the nervous system. And because neuron is the one which is basically playing all the roles, which is doing the main function, so it is the functional unit. So let us know how these nerve cells look like. So the structure of neuron is something like this. I told you, each time I have taught you this, I have told you not to draw any kind of flower, but it should look like a neuron. Okay, why am I unable to draw this now? So this is somewhat like neuron. This is the nucleus. All the cell organelles are present inside this, and this middle portion is known as the cell body, also known as perikaryon, okay, and also known as cyton. These are the three names of the cell body. Inside it is present the nucleus and all other cell organelles, except one cell organelle, the name of which is centrosome. Now this centrosome plays a major role in cell division. It helps the cell to divide. But because neurons once formed do not divide any further, the number of nerve cells number of nerve cells which are already present in your brain, they will remain the same. They'll not divide. Okay, so because nerve cells cannot divide, they are the permanent cells. So this cell organelle is missing in them. Okay, so this is the major portion, the cell body, the cyton or the perikaryon, and from this arise some of the projections, and these projections are known as dendrites. They are known as dendrites. They collect the message from the surroundings and give it to the cell body, right? Now next is a long process that arises from the cell body, and this is known as axon. It can be of various size, and mostly the neurons are covered. The axon of most of the neurons, it is covered by a layer known as myelin sheath. The axon of most of the neuron is covered by a sheath known as myelin sheath. This is myelin. This sheath is further covered by a very thin sheath, and that is known as neurolemma, also known as neurolemma. Myelin sheath is already there, but some of the times myelin sheath is further covered by another thin sheath that is known as neurolemma. Okay, and the parts of the axon which are not covered, these parts, which are not covered by the myelin sheath, they are known as nodes of Ranvier. Nodes of Ranvier. And then this axon ends. And this end portion is known as axon terminal. Okay, this is about the neurons, their structure, and mind one thing, there is not only one neuron present in, your nervous system, there are millions of them, and one neuron is further linked to another neuron, but two neurons, they never join one another. So if this is your one neuron, it is not, joined by another neuron. There is some space in between them, and this space is known as synaptic cleft. These are the dendrites. One neuron never joins another neuron. There is always a space between them, and that space is known as synaptic cleft. So now the question is, if the two neurons are not linked with one another, they are linked, but they aren't joined with one another. So if they aren't joining, then how are they delivering message? How is message delivered from one neuron to another? This is being delivered there by the process of releasing of some of the chemicals. If this neuron is receiving a message, then it will release at its terminals a few chemicals. These chemicals are known as neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters. They are transmitting the message from one neuron to another. Basically, this material is acetylcholine. Okay, the main neurotransmitter which is delivering the message, it is acetylcholine. So the message is wrapped in these neurotransmitters, then these neurotransmitters are picked by the second neuron, and hence the message is inside another neuron. Similarly, another neuron, and finally the message will be sent to wherever it was supposed to be sent. Alright. So before beginning, there are some terms which should be known, which are linked to nervous system. The very first is stimulus. Stimulus is something that makes our body react. Stimulus is something to which our body reacts. Another term is response. Response is something that our body gives. Response is the change. For example, if this is a hot water, a boiling water kept in a beaker, you just touched it. Now the hot water is a stimulus. And how did you responded? You just took your finger away. So this is your response. Response is when your body brings a change in itself. Another thing is impulse. Impulse is just the irritability, or say the message that is traveling through the neuron. That is impulse. Another thing is receptor. Receptor are the special cells present in your body. For example, you touched this hot water with your finger is full of cells, right? Some of the cells, the sensory cells which were present at the tip of your finger, which made you react, they are the receptors. Receptors are the one which receive a message. And then there are effectors. So when you picked your finger, the finger didn't act. The muscles related with the finger, there were some muscles which pulled your finger away. They are the effectors. So this whole thing takes place via a cycle kind of thing. Firstly, there is a stimulus. Then, because of that stimulus, your receptors receive that message, and then the receptors send an impulse to the effector organs which can react, and then your effector organs brought a response. Right? These are the terms. Stimulus makes your body react. Response is your reaction that you gave to the stimulus. Receptors are the sensory cells which received the stimulus. Effector is that organ which brought the response, and response is the change in your body, how you reacted. Okay, so we said that the message or the impulse travels from one neuron to the another neuron via neurotransmitters. But what about the message? How is it traveling in a single neuron? How the message reached from the cell body to the axon terminals? How the message reached from here to here? Right? This takes place by the process of sodium pump. Sodium is doing everything in this. Sodium pump. So let us see how this happens. So basically, when the neuron is at rest stage, it looks something like this from inside. All the negative charge is present inside and the positive charge is present outside when the neuron is at rest. So whenever the neuron or the nerve cell gets a stimulus, it gets activated. It becomes more permeable to the positive ions. It starts bringing the positive charge inside. So when the positive will come inside, then the negative will go outside. This stage is known as excited stage. When a neuron encounters a stimulus, it becomes more permeable to positive charge. The positive charge starts coming in, and this stage is excited region. Then this excited region further moves ahead and the message travels. So the message from here traveled up to here, right? And the negative charge goes out, and the previous one became again the resting region. Okay, so message travels from one point of the neuron to another via sodium pump. The positive charge starts sweeping inside, the negative charge starts moving outside, and hence the message travels from one point to another. Alright, this is how a message is conducted within a neuron. And then when this message comes at the end, then neurotransmitters are released, chemicals are released, and these chemicals are picked by another neuron, and inside that neuron the same procedure happens again. Right? Now we said that between one neuron and another neuron was a space known as synaptic cleft. Means they aren't joined together, but there is some space in between them, and that is known as synaptic cleft. But it doesn't mean that they are not connected with one another. They are connected. Message is being transferred from one neuron to another via some of the chemicals. So there is some kind of connection between them, and that connection is known as synapse. So message is going from one neuron to another. So means there is some kind of connection between them, and that connection is known as synapse. But they aren't joined with one another. They aren't completely attached to one another. So there is a space. That empty space is synaptic cleft. The space is synaptic cleft, but the connection is known as synapse. Okay, and neurons are basically of three types. They are sensory, they are motor, and then there are associated neurons. Sensory are the ones which carry message to the brain. Motor neurons are the one which brings the message from the brain and gives it to the organs. And then there are associated neurons which joins sensory neuron with the motor neuron. There are some neurons which connect sensory and motor. They are known as associated neurons.